finally gave birth to a son after 12 years of marriage. I remember how happy I was to see him, squealing so energetically that my exhaustion flew away. A few hours after the birth of my son, my husband and mother-in-law came to my hospital room. "We saw the baby. He's so cute, just like Mark."
"Good job. Our baby is a boy."
They looked content. When I told them about my pregnancy, I was worried about their indifferent attitudes. But seeing their cheerful faces reassured me that their own child or grandchild was adorable. I hoped that we might be able to have happy days like in the past.
"So, we're getting a divorce."
My husband initiated the divorce, as if it were a casual conversation. It was followed by my mother-in-law. "Well, we'll take the heir." She said it with a smile on her face, not changing her demeanor.
"You're no longer needed. I've taken care of you for over a decade, so don't complain now."
It's way too late to have the first child after 12 years of marriage. He should switch to a younger girl who can bear more children.
I don't want to waste any more time with you. So, divorce me right away.
Okay. Then I'll destroy your home and company. My name is Sally. I'm a 34-year-old housewife. My husband Mark and I started dating back in the university. When we were students, we were an ordinary couple. I thought he was just like me, from an ordinary family. But after we engaged, I learned that his grandfather was a wealthy man who owned several companies. Moreover, they were so big that everyone knew about them. I was anxious about my marriage, thinking it was too much to be the wife of someone from such a family. But Mark said,
"It's no different than any other family. Just that my grandfather is a business owner."
He was a kind guy who always considered me. So I thought I could work things out with him and decided to marry him. After marriage, Mark and my mother-in-law Helen wanted me to live on a property and be a full-time housewife. Mark got a job at an ordinary company, so life was mostly normal for us. Except that I struggled to learn table manners when I had to go to a high-class restaurant for family gatherings. After the third year of our marriage, Helen, who had always left us couple alone, started interfering. It's already been 3 years, but no baby yet? Mrs. Miller's daughter just got pregnant. I wonder when I can meet my grandchild. She came over early in the morning and urged me to have a baby every day. I spoke to Mark about this.
"She's been lonely ever since my dad passed away. We'll have a kid someday, so don't take it too seriously."
He told me to be patient. I should have retorted to her, or blatantly asked Mark to tell her to stop. But I felt so bad about not being able to have a baby myself that I couldn't come on strong. Many years has passed, but still no baby. Meanwhile, her demand to have a grandchild got more intense. Not only that, she started harassing me about my chores, criticizing my cooking and throwing the food away, and ordering me to finish the mowing the yard within an hour. Once I told Mark that I was tired of the attacks from his mother and wanted him to do something about it.
"Deal with it yourself. I'm tired, so don't bother me with such a trivial matter."
He interrupted me and scolded me with a sigh. Around this time, he was busy establishing a company affiliated with his grandfather's and was to become the president. He was coming home late at night frequently, not only to work, but also to socialize and drink. And when I tried to talk to him, most of the time, he was too exhausted to listen to me. The numbers of occasions we spoke to each other became less and less, and our relationship as a married couple was diminishing. Even so, I thought that if Mark's work settled down and we had a child, we could go back to the days when we were close. So, I started infertility treatment. During the treatment, I often felt tired and couldn't do what I wanted. And I was also anxious that I wouldn't be able to have a child. It was mentally and physically exhausting. But I somehow managed to hang on, dreaming of a happy life for our family. As a result, we were finally able to have a child after 12 years of marriage. When the doctor told me I was pregnant, I wanted to jump up and down for joy. I called Mark right away. "Are you busy? Sorry to bother you. I just saw the doctor and I'm pregnant."
Oh, good. I'm busy right now, so I have to go.
His reaction was so cold that my high spirits disappeared. When I told Helen,
Finally, I thought I wasn't going to have a grandchild.
there was no words of joy or no congratulations, but only the reaction I didn't expect. So I was quite disappointed. Even after the news, Helen didn't stop harassing me, but continued ordering me to clean her house and stealing the meal I prepared, which added more burden on my shoulders. Mark was still coming home late and we didn't have time to talk. My feelings started wavering around this time. Should I get a divorce? But we might reconcile after the baby is born. A half year later, I gave birth to my son. I remember how happy I was to see him squealing so energetically that my exhaustion flew away. I would have loved to have Mark with me there, but I told myself that he was too busy. He and Helen came to visit me a few hours later. I was surprised to see them both, as they never said they were coming. But I didn't say anything, thinking they were just rushing in to celebrate the birth. We saw the baby. It's so cute. Just like Mark.
Good job. Our baby is a boy.
They looked content. When I told them about my pregnancy, I was worried about their indifference. But seeing their cheerful faces reassured me that their own child or grandchild was adorable. I hoped that we might be able to have happy days like in the past.
So, we're getting a divorce.
Mark initiated the divorce, as if it were a casual conversation. It was followed by Helen.
We'll take the heir.
She said it with a smile on her face, not changing her demeanor. What are you talking about? I just gave birth to your son. And you're talking about a divorce?
You're no longer needed. I've taken care of you for over a decade, so don't complain now.
It's way too late to have the first child after 12 years of marriage.
I can't expect to have more grandkids from someone over 30, like you. You should switch to a prettier and younger girl who can bear more children.
My mouth was agape from such a shock, and they thought I was incapable to fight back. They continued with their selfish claim.
I guess you'll be struggle to make ends meet after being a housewife for over 10 years. I'll be lenient with the child support.
You can thank us for raising your son later. He's a precious heir. When they finished talking, they walked out of the room with satisfied looks on their faces. All I could think about was how to make him regret his decision. In my quiet hospital room, not once did I consider avoiding a divorce, which convinced me that my love for him was gone. After my mind was made up, I called my parents and asked them to pick me up upon my discharge. I assumed my son would be taken away from me if I returned home. I didn't want to worry my parents more than necessary, so I simply informed them that I was getting a divorce. I sent a text to Mark and Helen that I wasn't well and was going to stay with my parents for a while. Helen replied with complaint, but Mark simply wrote back, okay. I wasn't sure if he thought it would be too hard to take care of an infant, but if he thought I wouldn't get away from him, but I was relieved that he didn't object. Although I was wary, they never came to the hospital or my parents' house again. While my mother was taking care of my son, I decided to call my grandfather-in-law to retaliate against Mark. I knew it was brazen of me to rely on him, but to weaken Mark and Helen's position with an extended family, and to get me a lawyer, I decided it was necessary. It was my very first time calling him, so I was anxious while the phone was ringing. When he answered my call, I told him about what happened during my pregnancy and what I had been told by them right after I gave birth. I also forwarded the nasty messages I received from Helen and hinted to him that Mark probably had a mistress, from the way she mentioned switching to a younger girl. He couldn't make a decision based on my story alone, so he was going to investigate and then call me back on another day. I received a call from him a week later. From his investigation, he found that Mark had been cheating on me for 3 years, and Helen had been telling people that I had run away, and she was raising her grandson. My grandfather-in-law sounded stoic, but I could feel his quiet rage vibrating through the phone. To gather more evidence of adultery, I found a private detective to tell Mark, and my grandfather-in-law referred me to a seasoned lawyer. The more and more evidence of infidelity came out. His mistress was a gentle-looking girl in her early 20s. There were pictures of Mark going into her apartment, of him happily arm in arm with her, and of them going into our house together. There was a picture of the girl chatting with my mother-in-law, so she must have known about the affair. I was ready to retaliate. When my health was back to normal, Mark and I decided to discuss our divorce. We met in the meeting room at his company. Mark and Helen were already seated when I showed up with my lawyer. "Where's my grandson? You never let me see him since his birth." Helen grimaced at me. "He's with my parents." "You are too clumsy and not the best at raising a child. So give him to me now." "You hide in your parents' house and bring a lawyer with you? I was going to let you go without child support and alimony. But if you're willing to fight, I'll be thorough, too." "What do you mean by alimony?" "I'm going to take over my grandfather's company one day. And yet, I took care of a childless woman for over a decade. So it wouldn't be worth it if I didn't get alimony." Mark sneered, and my lawyer looked at him coldly. "I wonder which one of us would end up paying alimony." "Huh. Look who's talking." "Helen, let me check again. I'm having a hard time having kids, and I'm not getting any younger. So you want Mark to marry a younger girl?" "Right. You're not so bright, and have no awareness of what kind of family you married into. We need a healthy, obedient, childbearing bride. Do you agree with her, Mark?" "Sure. I don't want to waste any more time with you. Let's divorce as fast as we can." Both of them said exactly what I wanted them to say, which made me grin. "Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Now I'm going to destroy you and your company." "Huh? Huh?"
They rolled their eyes at each other, and then burst out in laughter. You? Who do you think you are so succeed doing such a thing? His company is affiliated with his grandfather. You were born and raised in a poor family. There's no way you could do that. They continued to mock me for a while. Well, let's have a look at these first. I presented them with dozens of pictures on the table. Both of them immediately shut off their laugh and became serious when they saw them. So, what are they got to do with us? You may be mistaken. This woman is my friend from the university, and I was just being consulted about her career. I see. Then, how about these? I pulled out a voice recorder and played a conversation between him and his mistress about their honeymoon and married life. Both Mark and Helen turned pale when they heard the recording. What the hell is this? I got nothing to do with it. I hid a voice recorder in the house while you two were gone a few days ago. By the way, I bought it to get evidence of Helen's harassment. I expected Mark to deny everything when I showed him the pictures. So, I installed the voice recorder to make sure they couldn't get away with it. But we've been separated since you went back to your parents' house. So our marriage is being broken. We haven't been separated. I just went back home after the baby was born. In any case, I know you've been seeing her for 3 years. I have proof. That's a lie. Show me if you do. I met up with your mistress. I asked her to meet me since I had an impression that she might not know he was married. After hearing the recorded conversation, I was right. She was aghast and on the verge of tears when she found out. She led me to read the correspondence between Mark and her. I'm lonely right after a divorce. Will you accept me even though I'm a divorcee? There were several messages about him being single. I had taken pictures of those as proof of their affair. He was speechless after I showed them to him. It's disgusting that you're not only cheating on me, but also deceiving her by not telling the truth. I wonder what the people at work would think if they knew about this. You think you are threatening me with that? How could a company go out of business over something as trivial as cheating? Right. So it's okay that he has been listening? I showed him a screen on my phone, which had been on the line with my grandfather-in-law. Mark and Helen suddenly looked agitated and couldn't say anything other than, "No, wait. He's too busy to join us here." But he was concerned about me, so he has listening over the phone. He also helped me to get the evidence of your adultery. As soon as Mark heard me, he fell to the floor. I am very sorry. This is just a small marital dispute. When he started excusing, his grandfather scolded. A man who failed a woman he promised to protect wasn't capable of running a company. He said he was going to discipline Mark later and hang up the phone. Mark was still on the floor, frozen like a statue. Helen was pale as a ghost. Now, you know you can't get away with it. So, let's discuss child support and alimony. I was content to see the despair on Mark and Helen's faces. So I was going to let my lawyer take charge and wrap up the negotiation quickly. Let's not get divorced after all. The child should be with the birth mother. Drenched in his cold sweat, he suggested with a quivering smile. I laughed at his awkward expression and said, Yeah, right.
His face immediately turned to a natural smile. My son needs a mother, but he doesn't need a father like you. Let me say it from me, this time. You're no longer needed. So, please divorce me. Showing the despair on his face, he held his head with both hands. My lawyer and I ignored him and continued the discussion. It didn't reach an argument on that day, and Mark also hired a lawyer. As a result, I was granted alimony of $100K as I wished. The only reason I got what I wanted was that there was no property of division. Mark was earning a good amount of money, but when he was put in charge of the company, he became carefree and bought suits and watches of prestigious brands. I asked once if he was saving, and he said now was the time to spend, and he kept splurging. I suspected that he wasn't saving. And just as I thought, his account balance was only a few $100s. As there were no savings, Mark and Helen had cashed in numerous brands name items to pay alimony. But it still wasn't enough, and ended up selling their house. They moved into a small apartment and started a new lives. His company lost affiliation with his grandfather, and the companies he was dealing with pulled out, so he went bankrupt. The employees who lost their jobs were taken in by his grandfather. He managed to find a new job, but his salary became half of what he used to make. It was impossible to make a proper living. So Helen, who had been housewife, needed work, a part-time job. The two incomes should have been enough to make a living for them. But Mark needed to pay child support, and both of them couldn't downgrade their lifestyle. So the amount of debt kept increasing. I heard Helen ask for help from her relatives. They didn't even decline, but ignored her completely. My recording of her harassment that was passed around among them seemed to be effective. It's been a year since the divorce. Mark has never asked to see his son. I wonder if he wants to, but he can't even pay his phone bill. That there's no way for him to get in touch with me. Either way, my son and I are enjoying our peaceful lives without having to deal with him and Helen. I can't imagine raising my son together with them. I'm grateful now that Mark initiated a divorce